My best friend's wedding was approaching fast. It was an excellent occasion for all of us, a time where all of us friends were gathering to witness her marriage ceremony. I am Sarah, and my friend is Becky or Beck, like we called her in college days. My husband David was also happy, and so were Eileen and Frank. Our gang of 5 were always together since our school day. We went our separate ways, but came back all together for a reunion, and it was my wedding with David. That was 5 years back. We were getting back together again, this time for Beck's wedding. It was a grand celebration, and all of us were hanging out together, planning everything. Beck's event was going to be huge, as she was expecting many guests. She wanted a wedding event to be perfect. I've met her husband-to-be as well, and he seems like a nice man. Beck was at my wedding. She was there for me days before that, planning everything. She even helped me with my wedding vows. David was also happy for her, as she and David were also neighbors when we were in college. Since Beck took it upon herself to help me during my wedding days, I wanted to return the favor. I also had a big surprise for her. The event was approaching fast, and Beck was nervous. As friends, everyone was doing their part. David and Frank were going around looking at the wedding arrangement. Eileen was busy out shopping for Beck. I was with Beck as she and I were close. We were a group of 5 friends, but among us, Beck and I were inseparable. We loved each other, and even after going our own ways, we used to exchange greetings. She was particularly worried about her vows. She was expecting more than 1,000 guests, and she wanted to say something that would leave a lasting impression. I remembered my wedding vows, and I was just as nervous as Beck. She was there till the last moment when I had to say my vows. It was one of the most challenging things to do, but somehow I narrated all those beautiful vows that Beck wrote for me, for my husband. Those vows were witty and a bit suggestive. It raised some eyebrows, but it left David amused. He was happy with the commitments. As Beck's wedding was approaching, it was my turn to prepare her vows. The day was approaching fast, and we had had everything planned. We decided that all of her best friends will say something for our beloved Beck. We will start with Eileen, followed by Frank, and then my husband. Then lastly, I will get the mic. I prepared something beautiful for my friend Beck. I'll share some memories, and then we will move to Beck so she could say her vows to her husband. We rehearsed it a few times, and it was perfect. The time was approaching fast. It was Beck's wedding day, and the hall was full of guests. The vows were nearing, and Beck was freaking out. I relaxed her, reminding her of my time and how she helped me with my wedding vows. We had rehearsed everything many times. I will make sure I will make her wedding exactly how she made my wedding. My wedding was with my childhood friend David, and we were together as friends for years before our friendship turned into a love relationship. Our gang of 5 friends was all happy about our relationship, but none were as glad as Beck. She was with David and me the whole time. On my wedding day, I was at a hotel with my friends. Later, we all had to go to the wedding venue. With all my friends surrounding me, I had cold feet. I left to the bride's room with Beck in pursuit. She tried to soothe me, and I was in a panic. I did not have my cell phone with me, as David and I had decided we would not talk for a few weeks remaining for our wedding. It was my call. I wanted to keep a distance of a few days before our wedding to truly enjoy the reunion. However, on the wedding day, my anxiety was at its peak. Beck called David from her cell phone and gave it to me to talk to him. David and I spoke for some time. He told me I was getting worried for no reason, and our life ahead would be full of love. It was then that Beck had to run to the other room. Someone called her that her car was in the wrong spot, and she was about to get a ticket. She ran out, and I hung up the phone, feeling relieved. David put my mind to rest. I was feeling better. And then my eyes saw something unusual. The call log had David's name for all the calls Beck made from her phone. But that was not the only call to David. It was one of the hundreds of calls made from Beck's phone. Why was she calling David this many times, and for months? I quickly checked the messages on the dialed number, and thousands of messages popped up. I started to read those messages wide-eyed. Beck was standing beside me as I read my vows to David. I had the whole hall teary-eyed as I read my wedding vows. I had my parents there, my friends, my colleagues, everyone who was important in my life and for my future. Beck was there all the time crying and feeling happy for us. Beck and her husband were on the wedding spotlight. It was time, and as planned, all of us friends paid tribute to our friend Beck. David made the perfect speech on how Beck was the best friend of our group and how lucky her husband was to have her. It was then time for Beck to read her vows, and I had to start by sharing my love for my friend Beck and then hand her the mic for the vows. I read my husband's affair texts instead of her vows during the ceremony. Everyone was shocked, and Beck was speechless. Her face went from shades of red to blue, and it felt she would faint. But I did not stop. On my wedding day, I found hundreds of flirtatious messages between my husband and my best friend Beck. Both were having a steamy affair, and even the night before my wedding day, they were together. They shared lots of text messages that went from sleazy to nasty. Both were enjoying the affair where David sent her many vulgar texts, and she was replying in the same tone. At the wedding, I was shocked. I felt humiliated, betrayed by my love and my best friend. I wanted to break the marriage. I wanted to smash Beck's face. But what good would that do? I wanted them to feel the pain and humiliation I was feeling. So I waited. I waited years to take my revenge the way Beck took the best time of my life and turned it into a nightmare. I read all the nasty and flirtatious texts my husband and Beck shared. I saw David in the audience, his face flushed, and he was sweating like it was a downpour. Beck was trembling, and all the guests were looking at each other bewildered. Beck's man was looking at her too. He had his wedding vows ready. But I made sure he knew the real Beck before he read those vows. Beck tried to snatch the mic from me, but she was weak and shocked. She missed. And I moved to the other end, loudly reading all the messages my husband and Beck shared. Our friends were also speechless. Eileen and Frank had no idea what Beck and David were doing behind my back. I read everything at her wedding. She was planning to say her vows, but I showed my husband's affair texts. My wedding day, I was in ruins, but I hid my pain and let it all settle so I could take my retribution. I took years of humiliation I felt and unleashed everything on her wedding stage. David was looking at me, and the look told him what I could not. He knew he lost me then. But he never had me. He was out of my heart on our wedding day. But I wanted to wait and hit him and Beck when they least expected it. I finished reading many text messages and handed the shaky Beck the mic, welcoming her to read the vows. I left the stunning wedding hall that was in absolute silence. I never heard Beck utter a word. Beck's ceremony was over. Her man refused to marry her, as he had seen the real face of Beck. My marriage was over as well. David tried a bit to explain, but I sent him all the text messages that I moved to my phone the day of my wedding. He had nothing to say to me after that. Reading his steamy texts to my best friends that were explicit and dirty put his efforts to rest. I lost my best friend and husband, a friend that was a backstabber and a husband who was cheating on me a day before our wedding. Our best group of 5 friends was no more. Frank and Eileen, of course, took my side and wanted nothing to do with Beck and David. Beck's vows remained with her, as she got my husband's affair texts instead. She truly deserved that, and nothing else. To watch more animated story videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments section what you thought about this story.